Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on today's webinar. We still see a ton of people piling in. Just wanted to mention this is our most registered webinar we've ever had. We actually had to upgrade our webinar account. We had nearly 200 people registered for this webinar. So just want to give people a chance to start slotting in. We have, looks like over 70 already in the room. So we're going to give it about another minute here, and then we're going to get rocking and rolling. Wow. Make sure. Can you? Oop, that doesn't look right. Let's fix that. Does that look good? How are we looking there? Good. Cool. All right. All right, everybody, we'll get rocking and rolling here. I know folks are still piling in, and it looks like, but this webinar will be recorded, and we will circulate it afterwards. So if you had any team members that joined late, they're more than welcome to watch the recording after. But welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day here. Hope you all had a wonderful New Year's and holiday season. We're really rolling into 2026 here at Viirtue. We have a lot of really fun plans as far as new go-to-market stuff for you guys, and kicking off with some new AI tooling. Just to kind of summarize and give a recap of where we were last year, we added a sentiment analysis to the platform last year. We're actually going to talk about that a little bit today. We're rebranding that product as AI Insights, and just a continuation of that product that we did see good demand. And we had a lot of asks for an embedded tool where you guys can launch your AI agents, and that's what we're going to show you today. And I'm joined by the rest of the team. Melissa's here, as well as Justin, who will be doing the demo for you today. All right. So for our agenda today, we're going to go over what an AI agent is for those of you that don't exactly know what that means. We'll go over packaging and pricing and some of the marketing assets that we put together for you guys to complete your go-to-market. We'll go over the competitive landscape and who you'll be positioning this product against. And then we'll also go over some different options. There's a few different types of ways you can deploy AI voice agents with Viirtue. You can build your own using our API. We've had some really awesome partners that have done that before that will actually have future webinars that they'll be able to showcase their products and what they've built. And some of them actually even offer like a white glove type of solution. One of the takeaways you might see today is there are, some requirements on your end as a partner as far as deploying these. You're going to have to build these for your customers, build out the call flows, tune them, train them, do all those kinds of things. So for those of you that don't want to be as hands-on as some of our other partners, I think you'll see we'll have coming down the pike here some good solutions with some of our ecosystem partners that might help you guys, again, just be a little bit more hands-off. And then we'll go into a full product demo, and then at the end, we're going to open up some polls and some Q&A, and then what's coming in the near-term future here in Q1. So moving right along, AI voice agents, again, for those of you that don't know what they are, so they're integrated AI agents into the voice platform that do real work. You can have like a human-like receptionist if you want to keep it real basic for your customers, we're going to show you today, or fully advanced, almost replicating a full-time employee that can actually perform tasks, answer questions. But that is what an AI agent is and what the platform is going to enable you to, again, deploy for your customers. We're going to go over the go-to-market packaging for you guys. We've done a bunch of research specifically with the main competitor that you'll face head-to-head, which is RingCentral. They're the ones, according to their public filings, that are really doing the best with selling AI agents in the marketplace. And that's where we really see the opportunity and, again, who you'll be competing head-to-head. So when you see a lot of the assets that we're going to be providing you guys, like battle cards and things like that, it is really positioned to help you guys sell against RingCentral. But again, the other players out there like Zoom and stuff like that, you should have no problem positioning your agents against. And then we'll also talk about, we have really in-depth training materials that we've worked on. Justin specifically, I want to give a lot of credit to him and Renee and the rest of the team that worked tightly on these materials. So we have guides for you guys, videos. We'll talk about a little bit later. You actually will have to go through a brief LMS course and get certified on the agents before you can actually deploy them. But really great training materials. They're more fun, I think, too, than ones in the past. So hopefully we don't bore you to death with training. All right, just a look at the competitive landscape. Again, when we talk to the partners who we tested this with and just research the overall market, it does really seem like RingCentral is doing the best here. And we wanted to give you just start the webinar with this understanding of who you're going up against, how they're positioning their product, what their product does, and what the price point is. So as far as what their product does, we see RingCentral in the app that we're going to show you today. They're very comparable from a feature perspective. We actually set up our own RingCentral agents to test back and forth and just see kind of just where we stacked up against them, feature wise, all that. We feel like an AI and RingCentral actually brands it as their AI receptionist, and that's kind of what we feel like more of what it does. Not as deep with integrations, not as deep with customization there. It is really kind of in our eyes was like a fancy auto attendant. They have basic scheduling integration with like Google Calendar and Outlook Calendar, which you'll see today we have as well with this agent. But for the most part, I think you'll be highly competitive from a feature standpoint, and then a pricing standpoint. There's definitely a lot to work with there as well. Where RingCentral is coming in with their agents, they're pricing them at $69 an agent. That agent includes 100 minutes. And if you see here at the bottom, this is right on their website. They're charging overage at 50 cents per minute after that. For you guys, for pricing for our existing partners, we'll go over at the end. You'll have to request an addendum. That's basically the only thing you have to do to get access to this, which will provide your pricing. And just like everything else, our pricing is tiered based on your commitment. And just to give you kind of like a rough estimate of where you'll be at pricing wise and just the margin that you'll be able to compete with, your price per user, we packaged it the exact same way. So again, you can go head to head. The user includes 100 minutes. Depending on your commitment level, you'll be about half that. And then as far as overage goes, you'll be at about a third of what RingCentral is charging per minute. So a lot of room there for you guys to either, win that business on margin, or try and undercut RingCentral to try and win the business and help, get a stickier customer. That is really what we're seeing. Once you deploy these agents, it makes for an incredibly sticky customer, because once you get it tuned and kind of go through all the motions there, it's not just like setting up an IVR and kind of, set and forget. Once you get it tuned and these customers have it where they want, it's tough to rip out, because it does run a good part of their business. So that'll be up to you. We'll give you guys, again, a few of those different business models, but at the end of the day, that's what I think really makes the partnerships that we have here so unique, is that go to market. Ultimately, it's up to you. It's your decision. All right, a few examples of where we've seen, again, just to kind of take a step back. We did about 3 or 4 months of testing with a handful of partners on this, thousands and thousands of calls. We did real world testing, partners just that used it internally for testing. And we saw a lot of different use cases that we thought made a ton of sense. And we'll talk about too a little bit later. We do have custom integration offering, where you'll be able to submit, and for a one-time fee, we'll build custom integrations. But you'll see when Justin takes you through the tooling today, you can build your own integrations, whether it be a Zapier or webhook, or again, we have the native calendar integrations in there too. And again, just kind of piggybacking on those, these are some of the use cases that we saw a lot of success. This first one is actually us. Some of you know, we have Rob and I started our business as partners of another vendor. So we still have a handful of legacy clients from 10, 15 years ago that we manage. And we set it so if they dialed our support, all those calls were going to the agent. And we found success in about 50% of those calls where the agent was able to accomplish its job, which was we built it to intake, get details about the problem that was happening, create a ticket within Zendesk, and a few other things. And we saw a tremendous amount of success. Some people still just want to speak to a live person. They ask for that. And we tuned our bot to basically transfer and not argue that. But again, for you guys as partners, and what you'll see today with Justin, one of the really cool things about this is that's really up to you guys and your customer. You can train the agent to not allow to pass to the next point unless it gathers that information, or again, however you wanted to handle those intakes and your customers do. We worked with a partner that had an insurance agency that had a third-party answering service. They were paying quite a substantial sum to, essentially just to answer calls, take a message, and forward that call to the insurance agent. So, for example, like somebody got into a car accident at 11 p.m. and had some questions. The agent, they were able to train it on their FAQs, and they were able to completely alleviate that need for a third-party, answering service, if you will. We talked to a very similar use case was a partner that had a medical practice with multiple locations. They also had a 24-hour on-call answering service. It was a very similar thing. They would call the number to the doctor's office. I'm sure a lot of you know this use case. They would get it's after hours, it's an emergency. They talk to the answering service, and now you have basically a call center person determining if this is an emergency or if this is just something that's just a message they need to relay to the doc, to the on-call doc. So we found that they were able to train the agent on specifically when to escalate it, how to escalate it, what verbiage to use, that type of stuff. And again, same thing, they were able to alleviate the 24-hour live on-call answering with an agent that was able to do the job. Some more examples that we saw. We worked with a partner that had a car dealership that had VIN Solutions as their platform, and they were able to actually book and cancel service appointments from that. I don't know if we got that far, but we talked to them a little bit deeper too. They were able to actually potentially have inventory questions. So if callers wanted to know, hey, do you have this vehicle on the lot? How much is it? Those types of things. They were able to dial into it as well. We were able to work with another partner as far as a large accounting firm that had every CPA at the accounting firm had their own account executive that was essentially just booking meetings for them. So that was able to be supplemented in most part. They weren't able to fully replace those account executives because they did a lot of things, but a big part of their job was simply taking calls and booking meetings for the CPAs, and that was taken care of with the agent. And then another one, this is actually a good friend of mine who's local here. It's a very small business. He has two people basically there. And he is always, it's a restoration company. He always had this problem scaling, was because if you have water damage, you call into a restoration company, they have to ask very unique qualifying questions that you had to kind of have been a contractor in a previous life in order to know what questions to ask. It's not something you can just hire somebody off the street. And that was always just really a bottleneck for him, that as the business owner, he was only able to take on a certain amount. If he was busy, he wasn't able to answer the phone. He wasn't able to hire somebody to take those calls, again, because the training hurdle it would have required. He was very skeptical that this would have been able to take that for him. But not only was it able to be trained and answer those complicated questions for him, but it books those appointments for him and has really kind of changed the game for his business, and he doesn't take those calls anymore. All right. So before we go into what's next, I'm going to end my screen share. Second, guys. And I'm going to kick it on over to Justin for the demo, and then the show is yours, sir. And before Justin takes over, I did want to one other thing that I completely forgot to say at the beginning. There is a questions button at the bottom. If you do have questions, pop them in there. We'll try and address them towards the end as well. But all you, Justin, take it away.
Perfect. Cool. And just to be clear, you guys can hear me as well as see my screen, correct? Yes, no?
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you can see us. Yes, we can see you.
Okay, perfect. Cool. All right. So I'm about to drop a lot of information on you guys. All right. And I do talk fast, but we have a Q&A at the end. So I'm going to break this down essentially into 3 different steps. Number 1, enablement, how to self-serve or set this up yourself in terms of activating an AI agent for, in this case, a domain or a client. Number 2, we'll talk about just the basics of creating an agent, and then we'll finish off with the fine tuning and kind of the extra sauce or extra features that are going on in the background. So to start off here, how this is enabled is through a UI configuration, okay? And if you're not familiar with those, it's basically a granular breakdown of the feature sets that are available within client domains, as well as other feature sets that live on the platform. So it's very simple. Essentially, it's just one UI configuration that you will need to enable. And I'm just gonna scroll to it here, portal, extra, and then it should be the only one, JS here. So this is the only thing that you need to do, all right? But I want to preface this. Before you can actually add this configuration, all of our partners must first go through our LMS module. It's a very short training, but essentially at the end of it, you'll get the cheat code or value that you can input to activate this particular UI configuration for your domain and how to do so. Again, just navigate to portal extra _ JS, and then from there, add a configuration. Now you can activate this in multiple different scopes and any other UI configuration for that matter. Without giving you too much sauce here, it would typically be recommended to activate it here at a domain level, where essentially you're going to choose the domain that you want to activate it for. And then from there, you're going to input simply a value. And again, this is the cheat code that you'll get at the end of the LMS. You just want to make sure that you all understand how to maintain and, of course, tune your agents, add them outright, and of course, go through the extra stuff that we'll cover here today too. So once you've done this, once you've chosen the domain, chosen or input the value, at that point in time, you can add the configuration. And then once you've done so, if you're familiar with NetSapiens, okay, you're definitely going to find the menu options familiar. But if you're not, essentially, we are within a client shell or domain, as NetSapiens calls it, just a fancy word for it. And at the end of that stack now is going to live AI agents. All right. And this is very, very easy to configure because each AI agent is essentially, or it starts out as basically template driven. And that's just to kind of further drive or quicken up the build time. But we'll get into how you can customize it here in a moment. All right. So with that said, you get your nice little AI agents button, and now we get the ability to actually add an AI agent. And it's very simple. As Dan had mentioned, there is an integration for Zendesk. That's one that we have here. We're not going to worry about that today. There's plenty of other integrations that you can use as well. And then, of course, also you have your 3 basic templates, okay? And again, these are just jumping off points, all right? Just to kind of point you in the right direction. If you didn't want to get off into the weeds, or if your client didn't need all the extra sauce, you can very much just use a template and let it ride. Granted, you can still somewhat fine tune it. All right. But with that said, your 3 basics are going to be essentially a call screening service, a receptionist, right? Who's calling, what's your information, and then from there, the ability to perhaps transfer off to another destination here within the PBX. And let me back up, because an AI agent actually lives as an extension. So that means that it can not only transfer to individuals, but individuals as well as other call flow items can transfer to an AI agent or more if you wish to do so. Granted, typically, your business only usually needs 1 AI agent because it can handle it all in one fell swoop. That said, and I digress, we can go on to the next template here, the appointment scheduler. This is typically the one that would integrate with, say, a calendar type of application to where, based on a condition, your bot can start to schedule appointments for you, okay? And then lastly, probably the more complicated one, granted, more complication comes down the road once you start to customize these entirely, and we'll talk about it, but the message taker. So this is the one that can essentially start to answer questions, collect data, and then from there, send off that data as well as the call transcript to an endpoint, typically an email address, all right? And that's the one that we'll pick here today. Granted, regardless of which one that you pick, you can always further customize. Now, again, this is an extension. So in this case, I'm just going to give it an extension number and keep on. And then from there, it's going to, granted, this isn't quite available just yet. If you choose an outbound caller ID, this would come into play for transfers if you wanted to select it to be displayed to other individuals that were picking up a transfer line to say, hey, this is the number that this is coming from, and maybe identify that as the bot. But if you didn't choose one, essentially, it would just show the extension. That said, not very important, but caller ID, sure. Give your bot name. In this case, I'll be very generic and just call her a bot. And as well as in this case, since it does have the ability to send off a notification, you'd want to input an email address. And granted, you can always modify this as well as add further later. But in this case, we'll just stick with the generic one and go ahead and just build the agent. And once we've done so, we'll have the ability to start to set it up. So this is just kind of a baseline. What do we want to let it know about our business? Which questions do we want it to ask? We'll talk about it. All right. So in this case, we'll again be very, very generic, and we'll just call it my business, Baker Co. Keep it on. This is one address or website that you can give to the agent to scrub. Typically, in this case, it would be your business, right? So that it can scrub your website, it can pick up all your business information, and then from there, it can start to share it with inbound callers, which is very nice. Again, it just kind of starts collecting as well as sharing basic information so that a human being doesn't have to. Fairly simple concept. I'm going to go ahead and continue with just the generic one, an additional link maybe to a blog, right? Or some other website so that, again, can further scrub and gather information. Now, off the cuff in the templates, it's only going to give you 2 options, but I want to just completely lay it down. You can further add links if you wish to do so after the fact, and we'll talk about it, okay? So again, I'm going to continue through most of this. Now, the answering rules, essentially, how is it going to talk about your business? What would you like it to answer with when somebody dials in? Hey, this is my business, this is what we're about, and so forth, and then keep it moving to maybe a question and answer. And then from there also you can program, and again, this is going to be later customizable if you wish to fine tune it, just questions to collect. You know, why is somebody calling my business? Which information do you need? And especially with this messaging type of agent, it's going to remember, and it's going to also send that off to a person along with the transcript and the recording so that they can better understand and follow up with that call to a person and see more personalized. And again, this is free form. Okay, I want you to think about all of these text boxes as ChatGPT, because the engine is ChatGPT. Okay, but I want you to have that concept in mind. You do not have to understand a programming language to set this up. If you know plain text, if you can type, you're off and running. Okay, so here you can absolutely add further information that you'd like to collect based on bullets. Now, what we have here is good enough for me. So again, I'm going to send it. Now, also, you can give the bot the ability to transfer to other individual extensions, folks with a provision device within the PBX itself. Okay, so in this case, you have the yes, no option. You're basically just giving it permission. So we'll let this ride to enable transfers and then transfer conditions. You know, what is the trigger for that bot to be allowed to transfer? Because you don't want to just do that for everybody, right? You want to set a certain condition for that. So in this case, maybe they're calling about a project, maybe they're calling about an emergency. And then from there, based on that condition, you're giving the bot its permission to do so. Now, before you do start to transfer, maybe you do want to start collecting further information or let them know what exactly is going on. In this case, about my business. What else should they know about it? Well, it's pretty sweet, if you ask me. So from there, we can start our destination transfers, all right, to where, again, this is going to pick up any individual that lives in the PBX with an extension and a provision device, to where now you can, again, give it further permission to, hey, who can you actually reach out to, right, based on that condition. So in this case, maybe I want to modify it and get rid of some of these folks, and then again, keep sending it. Pay no attention to this. This is just a legacy window here. This has been completely replaced. This just has to do with my domain. All right. So you wouldn't necessarily get this. You'd finish on the call transfer portion. So now we've gone through the actual basic setup of the agent based on template. We've given it some information to feed off of so that inbound callers can start to interact with it. And now we've got our nice little bot here living at an extension. We'll get into all the extra little sauce, but before we do so, over here on the right pane, we've got a couple things going on. Obviously, we can delete the bot at any point in time and start over if we wish to do so. We'll dive into editing here in a moment. But also, you do have the ability to interact with the bot directly here on the platform. This will basically launch a sub window, and it'll use your computer audio, headphones, whatever you got plugged into it to essentially seem like you're dialing in so that you can test it. You can make sure that it's answering things correctly. And there's a couple other ways that you can basically monitor and maintain this bot that we'll, again, get into towards the end. But the main point, the edit. All right, we built the bot. We've tested it. It's time to start to make changes. A lot of different things that you can do. But as you can see, we're still in the template mode here. Okay, so we can only do just a little bit, all right, in terms of modification. Choose our template, maybe make some changes there if we wanted to go a different direction. Excuse me. Choose the language. There's multiple here. Very worth pointing out, this is also a multilingual based platform. So if somebody dials in and they start speaking any of these languages that you see here, maybe Hindi and so forth, the bot is actually going to start replying in that language, all right? But you can also set it in stone for English and Spanish only if you wish to do so, okay? And then of course, all the basics, not gonna get into these, but the ability to otherwise adjust the information that we had just previously input. So again, kind of a basic template mode, but if you wanted to go sicko mode, you know, you can essentially just detach this or decouple it from the template. And in doing so, once I detach this, we're going to see some extra sauce show up here, specifically on the basic settings tab. Okay, so now we have all that other information that we saw, but now we get to further break down and add more helpful or more customizable features. All right, so in this case, maybe I want to add more agents for notification. This is where I would do it. Again, links by default in the template mode, you're only stuck to 2, but now I can add further websites to have this bot scrub. So think about that. You have one bot that's out there teaching itself all these different things potentially. And then from there, after gathering that information, it can start to answer questions about that in live mode. So with that said, also, we did activate the call transfer. Remember when I selected yes rather than no, and then chose, of course, the extensions that I would like to be included in this. This is one of multiple functions that you can do, all right? So we can keep this. I'd love to keep the transfer capability, but there are even further functions that you can enable for this, okay, which makes this pretty much endlessly helpful for you and your business, okay? Now, notify, webhooks, scheduling, pre-answers, API requests. Think of these as all as conditions, okay? And each time that you click on one of these, say notify in this case, which is just a condition for the bot to essentially have permission to take a message or maybe even send a voicemail and so forth, or send a call to voicemail. But all of these fields are, again, going to be free form. Okay, it's going to give you a little bit of tidbit. And of course, our knowledge base articles are going to outline how to use these. But essentially, you're going to type in conditions and it's going to understand that because it's ChatGPT, right? And again, you can stack these. And all these conditions are essentially just that, the ability or condition for when you're going to send off, pick and pull information based on a webhook, when you're going to allow the bot to start scheduling calendar events and which calendars you want to actually connect it to. And then, of course, the pre-answer is basically just a bit of the ability for an agent to update documentation if you wish to do so. And then the last one here, Zapier. So with this, again, as well as webhooks, very important. It's still a free form field, and you can add as many of these as you wish to do so. But these are basically just conditions to allow the about to follow. And when it does, and when that condition reaches its maximum goal, it's going to start connecting to Zapier for those requests. And again, add further customization to the platform. Now, everything else here is fairly straightforward. I'm not going to bore you guys. You can read this if you watch the recording and so forth. You can get kind of an idea. You can see all the voices that you can choose from and so forth. But more importantly, after you've done the basic stuff, you can see now we also have an advanced settings tab, okay? And on the advanced settings tab, you're going to have far more capability. Now, as I mentioned, this is ChatGPT, and as you can see, these are all of the conditions that are currently built in based on the template that we've assembled, and then a little bit of extra. So again, this is free form. You can tell this what to do. You can tell it how to behave. You can give it a certain condition. If that happens, it's going to follow the instructions that you give it. In the case of some of the custom ones that I've built, I've actually just taken the default template that shows up here. I've copied and pasted it in ChatGPT itself. I've typed in some functions that I'd like for it to follow, and then I've basically copied and pasted back here into the agent instructions. And again, you can always use the internal built-in way to basically listen and interact with the AI agent or call directly into it. There's another tool that you can use as well. But basically, as you add information, take away information, you can interact with it to ensure that it is functioning in the way that it's intended or that you wish. Now the rest here. Again, you've got further ways that you can add further agent notifications, emails, and so forth. You can pick and choose your agent models. Now, yes, I know there's only ChatGPT in here right now. And honestly, there's no real difference that I've really picked up on between the smart and the fast models, other than just in how quick that it responds. But we are planning on adding further models, whether that's Grok, whether that be Gemini. Down the line, those are going to start to show up as well, so that you can basically pick and choose based on your own preference. And the same thing for the speech to text engines. Currently, by default, it's using DeepGram. Google works just as well, and I'm sure down the pike, we're going to see further of these kind of show up. Now, again, I'm not going to go line by line here, and I know we can all read, but with this section, it basically controls the timing and the conversational behavior for your AI agent. Basically how it answers, how it listens, how it interprets, and of course, how it responds, all right? So just to give you a little bit more, let's say, natural feel to the phone call, these are the conditions that you can set or metrics in order to control that. And again, this comes down into fine tuning. So it's not always going to be perfect out of the box. Granted, most of them are pretty good, but you have these feature sets to help you, again, just further fine tune and iterate based on your needs. Now, probably most importantly is going to be these last three, probably these middle two, in my opinion, the contact injection. So the call history, as well as recordings and transcriptions, are all going to live on the platform for up to a year at best effort. That means you have total recognition of frequent callers. So do you want to store their contact information so that you're not constantly bothering them and adding it over and over and over, asking for it? Same thing for conversation history. This bot can actually reference the contact info as well as the conversation history, and then start to further interact with the inbound caller based on their DID, their name, whatever point in information that you'd like to collect. And you can always turn that off as well. But again, there's no additional cost, and it just lives on the platform. So why not take advantage? And then lastly here, just recording notification. Do you want to give people the notification that calls are being recorded? Probably pretty important for certain businesses, but not for everybody. Again, no additional charge, but you do have the ability to toggle it. Now, real quick here, before we dive into the extra stuff, you do also have the ability to set this up as a SIP endpoint if you wish to do so and use it. And then, of course, the most simplest one, I'm not sure why it has its own tab, but it is what it is. You can always rename the bot. There's no limitation here. If you get something in your noodle that kind of works a little bit better than just bot, you can come in here and always make a change. All right. So with that said, let's talk about the extra stuff that's going on in here. Now, number one, this does come with a 100-minute usage built in. All right, and then anything over that would be an overage. So you might want to obviously track your usage. Now, currently you have that ability here directly from the PBX. By clicking on usage, you're going to be brought into a pool. Okay, now it would be very unlikely for somebody to have multiple AI bots. All right, so seeing my list of 2, 3, 4, 5, however many might be in there, that would be pretty rare. So in this case, this is going to be a pool of all of your AI agents, all right? But in this case, it's going to kind of rely on just one that's being used currently, since we just built the bot together. So in this case, otherwise, you get to pick and choose your time period that you'd like to view your usage for. And then from there, you get, of course, the count of your usage, and then a nice little interactive graphic to where now you can see per day how many minutes have been used for that particular bot. All fairly straightforward stuff. Now, even cooler is going to be the call history. All right. It will live outside of the usual PBX call history. Okay. Granted, you can use it. It is an extension. So that will all be tracked in call history. If you did need to troubleshoot a call for jitter and so forth, or if you did want to use our sentiment analysis tool that I'll finish on here in a moment. But before I do, let's talk about it. So in this case, we've got an agent. We've got our call history. And within the call history, once it loads, we're obviously going to get the call detail records, who called and when, okay? And when I click into this, we're going to get a further breakdown, the day, the time, the duration, the call summary, and so forth. And then, of course, also the voice transcription. So this is going to be a transcribed version of the call that you can break down, that you can also download and store someplace else if you wish, okay? Now, very quickly, I want to lean into the fact that we do have another feature called sentiment analysis. And while I open up this pane here, just to give you a visual, let's talk about it. Now, we spoke about maintenance, right? You want to make sure that your bot's saying the right things, doing the right things, etc., and that people are interacting with it in a positive way. So with sentiment analysis here, this is again baked into the NetSapiens platform. It is an additional cost, but I digress. But with it, what you get is a positive, neutral, and negative score throughout the conversation. You'll then get a closing sentiment, and then, of course, topics. Now, real quick on the topics. You'll only see 3 here in the call history, but it's otherwise semi-unlimited in the sub window. But with that said, AI driven by default. So it's going to pick up on the things that were spoken about the most, maybe hot and low key points in the topics that were spoken about as well. But you can program this with keywords to where essentially you can input keywords about certain things to ensure that, number one, they jump to the front of the line in terms of being notified about those, but also to ensure that that bot's talking about the right things. And again, not that it would getting off the rails in any case, or maybe irritating anyone, okay? And in the sub window, just real quick, what you'll get, this isn't a real call, so don't judge it, is a breakdown of the call itself. You'll get the call recording bookmarked based on the sentiment that was analyzed so that you can quickly jump through. You can search the entirety of the conversation, AI-driven summary of the conversation. And again, pretty much unlimited topics here, but again, what was spoken about during the convo. And then, of course, your filtering features, if there were 2 sides of this conversation, to break down who is talking, and again, the sentiment that was analyzed, okay? So again, this is a nice little training tool that can also be used along with your bot, again, since it's an extension, to, again, further fine-tune your agent, okay? And I digress. That's all I had there. I can hand it on back over to Dan.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. You crushed it. All right. So now what I want to do is get into one last slide here, and then we have a lot of questions. So I want to go run through those if that works. All right, give me one sec. All right, can everybody see again? Cool. All right, so just some what's coming next, just so you guys get some timelines and know kind of what we're working on. For those of you that have been long-term partners, kind of know we like to keep a tight public roadmap. We don't like to look too far in the future because things inevitably change. So we're looking really at as far as Q1 goes. So you're going to have two new things added to this, basically at the same time that you guys get, by the time you're in it and trained up and stuff, you get access. But we're adding what's called MCP support. That's coming February 1st. If you don't know what MCP support, it's essentially a protocol that a lot of like the CRM providers are all using. So you can tie an agent into this one box basically, and then it integrates with all of them. So MCP support will bring 40 plus CRM integrations out of the box. And those are going to be all the ones that you guys are most likely to run into, like HubSpot, Zoho, Salesforce, all those. We've already built out, again, on top of that, some custom integrations like Zendesk. I saw a question came in about any ERP integrations. We built one out for ModMed. As we said, Vin Solutions, a couple others. So there is going to be a tool where anytime we build a custom integration, which again, we'll talk about in a bit, it'll be available for all of our partners. So long-term, the goal would be that over time, you'll see essentially every single platform that you would ever want to integrate will be in there. But until we get there, the different ways you can integrate, we'll have MCP support, as Justin kind of briefed over, we'll have webhook and Zapier support, which will have future workshops to show you how to use those a little bit better. So if you want to build your own custom integration, maybe you don't want the entire community to have it, you're more than welcome to just build your own webhooks in there, and that will essentially remain like proprietary to your brand. And then we do have also like a custom integration workflow. So if you guys do want, say, there's an ERP that we don't integrate or whatever the product is, we do have a formalized request process that you can put in that request. There's a one-time fee for it. We'll build the integration for your customer, so it'll essentially be turnkey for you, and then it'll be available for you and all other partners after that. Also coming on February 1st is more LLM support. So as Justin showed you, there's currently GPT 4.1 is the model that's powering this. They're adding support for GPT 5 as well as Grok. We have also received a ton of requests for Claude. I do think they said they roadmap that. So again, there should just be more models coming over time, and you'll be able to, as you saw, pick which model you wanted to use. We're also working on, due to the demand, we generally, our rule of thumb has always been we wait to see what the demand is before we build the Vibe integration. But just given there has been a lot of demand for this, we've already roadmapped that integration. The billing integration, so you'll be able to, just what we talked about, we have those bundles where you'll be able to have a user with a certain amount of minutes and then charge for overage, just the same like you're able to do that for a lot of different products today in Vibe. You'll have that same capability, so it'll automate that piece for you. And most importantly, the tax compliance. I think that's one of the things that we've noticed that like Twilio and some of those other tools are missing, is that if you are selling voice, this is a federally regulated voice service, just like everything else that's, you need USF and all that too. So Vibe will handle those requirements out of the box, and you'll be set up and compliant from day one. On top of that, so the last thing I'm gonna leave you with before we get into polls and questions, if you do want the agents, all you have to do is open a ticket with us. If you've never opened a ticket before, hopefully you have. If you've never opened a ticket before, you can either do it. We have the online portal at support.viirtue.com, or you can simply email support@viirtue.com. All you have to do is subject, I want AI agents. Just make sure your contact info is in there. That will create a ticket. Again, we are seeing demand for this that we haven't seen before with other new product launches, I'll say. So there probably will be a little bit of a first come, first serve. We do have to get the addendums out to all the different partners with your specific pricing. But that's basically the only bottleneck. Once you guys get the addendum, you'll take the training course, which is in the LMS. We figure that'll be about 20 minutes or so, depending on how, if you, take it in one shot or piece it together. Once you're done with that, as Justin said, you'll get the snippet. It's going to be a UI config. It's going to be something like ai.5060.cloud with an extra string on the end of it. And then that's it. After you get that, you guys will see, like, you won't, unless you want our help, you don't really need it from there. Everything is self-service. You can deploy them to singular domains, to all your customers. Again, it's completely, as Justin likes to say, the world is your oyster, from that part. So that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here just so I can bring up questions, because I know we had a ton of them. 1 second. All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom. We had a lot of questions, so definitely keep piling them in there if you do have. I know we have some more time left on the webinar, so we definitely have some time to go through these. Actually, before we go to questions, Melissa, you want to throw those polls up? We have 2 polls for you that we want to run through first, and then we'll get to questions. All right, so the first poll is, have you had demand for AI agents? Or are your customers already asking you about this? Or is this kind of completely novel and new to you? Give a minute for everybody to vote there. Wow. We're at 81%, 82%, yes, 83%. Wow. Okay, so very telling. All right, give that another second, grab some more votes. Okay, looks like everybody's voted. Okay, cool. Now let's move to the next one. Do you want to post the second poll? Is it up there? I can't see it. Can everybody see that? I don't see it. You can, okay, maybe it's just my view. Okay, the second poll is going to be, do you plan to use our turnkey agents? Or as we talked about, there's a few different ways you can do this. You can build your own with the API if you want to, layer in your own technologies. Or again, we'll be having future partner webinars with the ecosystem partners. Or if you want to be more hands-off and just kind of hand this over to somebody who's done this a lot and is kind of an expert in that space, that'll be an option too. Cool. Cool, give that another minute. Thank you guys for all voting. Appreciate that. It's very helpful for us. I think we've ever gotten this many votes on anything. Cool. All right. Okay, so with that said, let's move on along to questions. All right, so yeah, the first question that came in earlier was about pricing. Obviously, we didn't give the exact pricing because that's going to be dependent on your commitment tier. So for pricing, it's just reach out to support. I want AI agents. They're going to send you the addendum that's going to reflect whatever your commitment is today, and that'll show you all your pricing there. But there's definitely a lot of margin to be had in the product. Specialized migration. I'm not sure if I understood that question. Specialized mitigation business setup. Maybe that was a typo there. Yeah, Josh, if you want to repost that. Will we be sending a copy? Yes, this webinar is recorded, so you just have to go back to this room. You can watch it at any time. Another question came in from Lewis. Will this connect to systems like Clio or Filevine? And just as you saw with Justin, so long story short is yes. It just depends on how you want to connect to those systems. Again, if you want to build it yourself via webhook, Zapier, or if you want, a custom integration built. Another question that came in from Wendy was, will it be available in Spanish for Spanish-speaking customers? As you saw with Justin's demo, we do have that drop down, so you can select English only, Spanish only, or you can select multilingual, which again is pretty cool because you just start speaking, and I think there's like 8 or 9 languages today it supports, and it's, for example, Hindi. So it'll talk to you in English, maybe with the original prompt. If the caller starts speaking to it in Hindi, it'll understand that and adjust the rest of the conversation to speak in Hindi. I'm sure there's going to be more language support. That's actually pretty easy as far as like the LLMs and language models go. So that should definitely be coming down the pike. Another question was, I've seen in big companies that they use an AI agent to do bank transactions, like ask for a credit card to pay the rent. Will this be able to do that too? And yeah, so long story short, that's just an integration. So whether you want to do that via webhook or Zapier or to build a custom integration out, those should all be easily achievable. Another question was, is the agent going to help with surveys, like post-call surveys? And no, not yet, but that is something that we have received feedback before. So I'll definitely relay that feature request to the developers on this. Yeah, that's a great feature request. So not out of the box today, but definitely a good ask. All right. And then keeping it moving, Stephen had a question. Can we attach a Google or 365 repository? Is it website repository only? So right now it's website only. MCP support's coming, and that'll actually learn from those systems too. So again, another way to train it. And then on deck is also the ability to upload PDFs. So if it's a private knowledge base that, your customer might obviously not want public, they can do that. And another thing they can do too is where Justin showed you under the agent instructions, they can simply paste FAQs into there too. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat here. Hopefully the cat lovers didn't take that out of context. Yeah, so it's long story short is yes. Another question was, can the AI agent make outbound calls? So long story short, no, it can't today. Outbound is an entirely different beast, especially with AI. The FCC has actually already ruled on this. It's very similar to 10DLC where there's opt-in requirements. So I think we haven't really thought about the outbound motion as much yet. I think it's inevitable that there will be some features that will be outbound. But just to kind of give you guys a heads up, the industry and there's federal regulators, we actually are working directly with some federal regulators on just industry-wide stuff to crack down on a lot of like outbound. I'm sure you've seen our emails go through where we've increased our security measures. But essentially the government's trying to crack down on dialers and things like that. So that might be an overall pretty tough motion that I'm sure even more regulation is coming for. But we're keeping a close eye on it. We'll keep you guys posted. But long story short is right now out of the box, it doesn't do anything outbound. And again, I think the biggest barrier there right now is just there is a lot of regulatory stuff that's already been ruled on that makes that tough to do. And there's definitely more stuff coming based on just the conversations that we're seeing behind the scenes. All right. Another question from Curtis, can agent transfer to external numbers? And the answer is yes. Maybe Justin, I don't know if you have a better answer here. I think you would just do that the same as you would in our system. Like you just create like a route, a routing user, if you will. Justin, I don't know if you have any, better based on, doing all your testing.
Yeah, if you're going to transfer off-net, yeah, you'd have to go to a routing type of user first. Absolutely.
Perfect. And that's really, again, I think one of the really nice things about this agent is it's an extension in the system. It actually builds a SIP extension. So it works within the phone system just like another device would, which is nice. All right, another question came in from Dennis. The question was, is Zapier the only automation platform integration available? And the answer to that is no. So we do, again, we have webhooks. So Zapier, if anybody's used it before, it's easy, no code. So, really like set and forget. If you don't have the ability to write webhooks, Zapier is something that, again, if you just have any kind of technical know-it-all, you should be able to pop in there and figure out. But Zapier does charge for those what they call zaps. Not a huge amount, but there is a fee for it. So if you want to do something where you have full control and you're not being charged a price by the integration vendor, webhooks is going to be your route, or again, that custom integration where we'll build like the API webhook integration out for you. All right. Keeping it moving. Abdullah said, what EMR systems does the agent integrate with? Because it integrate with POS systems like Clover. So yeah, again, we have already built out a proof of concept with a platform called ModMed, which was a pretty popular EMR system that worked beautifully. It scheduled appointments, canceled appointments, can look up appointments, do it for multiple different locations. I think that the test subject we had was like a 40 location dermatology facility. So yeah, you can do all those things. Again, just one of those three ways, either custom, webhook, or Zapier. All right. I had another question here about RAG support, which I did relay and ask to the folks who developed it. And the answer is no, it doesn't support RAG yet, but they are working on RAG support. So that might be coming out pretty soon. Another question came in here from Nick, and we do have a lot, so hoping we get through them all. If not, we'll get through as many as we can. We still have 15 minutes here. The question from Nick was, since it's ChatGPT integrated, how would this affect, say, HIPAA or SEC compliance regarding PI? Very good question, confidential data. So this is really where it's going to be, again, you guys as partners are going to be able to add your sauce to it. So within the agent instructions, that's where you're going to have to build out the guardrails, what it can answer, what not to answer, what information to proceed with. There is no auditing yet. So as far as like HIPAA and PII go, it is kind of like a gray area. But I do know that this is something we're going to focus on, HIPAA specifically. Healthcare is definitely a vertical that a lot of our partners have a lot of penetration into. So we're trying to figure out, again, the best way to do that, to segment that data. It is, as you guys know, kind of the Wild West right now. But it is ChatGPT. Again, we're going to add Grok support too. But in the instructions, you can facilitate guardrails like don't pass this information, don't save any PII, things like that. All right. Another question came in was, we were demoing the AI agents and had it enabled in our domain. It looks like it's now gone. How do we enable them again? And will we have them to start from scratch? I'll have to take a look into that one specifically. Yeah, I know we had a handful of partners that were on our pilot program. We did do a cleanup, and this brings up a really good point. And that might have been what happened here, Mayor. Basically, long story short is, the way NetSapiens works is that what Justin showed you, that extra portal JavaScript injection that gives you that extra icon in the portal, you can only have one of those per domain. So if you had one in there, and we've had other partners, like one example of a partnership that we were testing, I don't think we got very far with it, but it was a platform called Prompt Voice that had the icon in there. So if you had one already in there and then you add this other UI config, whatever is the oldest UI config is going to take precedent. So if you had that already in there, you wouldn't be able to see the AI agent. So we just did recently a cleanup. I'm wondering maybe yours got in there by accident. So we'll double check on that. But long story short, that is an important thing. I know we have partners that have built custom stuff that use that extra Portal.js injection. So that is a key nuance to be aware of. If you already have something in there, you can only have one. So whatever it is, you kind of have to make that decision. You can obviously change it per domain and stuff like that, but that is unfortunately a NetSapiens limitation. Another question came in, what about integration with high level? So I'm assuming you mean Go high level. So I think for the most part, we're kind of looking at that as like another AI agent, like a different platform, if you will. But like everything else, same thing. You can integrate via webhook, Zapier, custom integration, however you wanted it to. Another question, and as you can tell, like integrations are going to be a huge part of this, we think, just with our early testing. So, and that's really what we think for you guys as partners is the secret sauce. Learn what your customers are doing, what systems they're using, deeply integrate, and they're not going to go anywhere. But the question from Jonathan was, are you guys offering to develop custom APIs for free? And yes, that is that same answer. Like I said, we will have, you'll see I think it's in the training, right, Justin? There is actually the link. It's simply a type form. You put in, we have like 5 or 6 things we need to grab from you, like the credentials, stuff like that. You enter it in, opens the ticket. Our team will just send you, the quote for you to sign off on, and then we'll build it out for you. All right. Next question from Pras. I said that right? Sorry if I didn't. Can the bot call API, wait for response, and then ask the next? So yeah, you should be able to train it to do that in the instructions. The way it works, and again, we're going to have workshops on this because it's just too much to cover, obviously, in one webinar. But we'll have workshops specific to building out webhooks, and it works in a pretty cool way. So what you do is you build the webhooks into the system so it knows what API calls are available to it, And then in the agent instructions, you'll then instruct them on how to use the webhook. So you can do, again, anything you kind of set your mind to. It's all prompt driven. Next question was from Lewis. Oh, wow. We have 25 questions left. Okay, so we'll definitely not get to the end of them. But thank you guys for all the questions. This is really helpful. Whether we answer them on the webinar or not, we're going to go through them all. So we'll either respond to you guys directly, but it'll definitely be reviewed. Make.com, I'm not sure what Make.com is, but if it is another like CRM platform, again, that'll just chalk right up into the integrations bucket. So that's same thing that you guys, that we talked about before. I see, Justin, I see you answered this question, but I'm going to answer it live just so everybody has it. How difficult is it to integrate into multiple calendars? For example, if company has one company has multiple employees, the agent could check availability. So you can do that. And also that might be a use case, Nelson, where you have multiple agents in one org. I think for the most part, what we're seeing is most orgs do one agent, but like what we've been testing internally, like we need multiple agents for our flow. We need an agent for our support that's trained that way. We have an agent that we have for after hours answering if you call into our sales lines. We built a demo one for our new website that you guys will see probably next week. So that is one of those cases. If you need something that's kind of, different requirements, that's going to be where you'll want to pitch another agent to that customer and say, hey, this agent will do this agent will do that, or maybe even more than that. All right, keeping it moving. Chris had a question. How is client data stored and used by the AI? Is the data used to train the GPT LLM, or is the data isolated into each domain? So it does use ChatGPT. So it's the same as if you were going to, prompt it to GPT. Obviously, that trains their greater model. So there isn't that isolation. What does get isolated is your agent instruction. So how the agent's used, the context it gives the model, that type of stuff is what's going to be isolated within that individual agent. But just, be aware, like it is using ChatGPT. Again, we have Grok support. We have talked to a vendor that we know very well that actually has a closed LLM model. There's no roadmap or anything on that yet. So if that is a bigger demand, which I do foresee it being, especially like PII, it is possible for us to potentially add like a closed LLM model down the road. Kimi K2 Turbo would be a great model to add. I have not heard of that model before, Dylan, but I'll definitely give it a look. It sounds very cool. So yeah, we'll definitely take a peek. Another question came in about costs. Again, just reach out for that addendum, email support@viirtue.com that you want AI agents, and they'll get you over your pricing. And then another question, minutes overage connected to Vibe billing. So again, that is already on the roadmap. Our internal development team has told us that to expect that late February, early March, so about, call it 6 weeks, about 2 or 3 sprints away from that being there. First, we'll have the usage rating tooling, so that'll be all automatic, and then they're going to be building like quoting products and stuff like that too, just to make the whole experience really simple. So yeah, that's definitely coming right down the pike. All right. Another question was, when will the agent? So it's technically going to be available as soon. Like maybe, and I saw Melissa answer that question. Like the official launch date that we're announcing is February 1st, but technically they're already available. As you can see, the bottleneck we know we're going to have is just there is a ton of demand, and we got to get these addendums out to you. So as soon as you sign, we get the addendum to you. You sign the addendum, you'll get access to the LMS. You'll take that LMS course. As soon as you're done with that, you have access. So if that happens before February 1st, you'll have access before February 1st. Is there a testing platform for proofing new agent setups? So you'll be able to just essentially, just like you do anything else, is build a test domain. We are also looking at potentially getting some like one test user per account. I don't have finals on that yet and when that would run to, but it is something we've discussed internally. I was hoping to have an answer fleshed out by this call, but I don't. But long story short, I would just build, like if you have a sandbox domain, just build the agent. And that's, that could be your testing, your sandbox instance. Another question was, will this work with a BYOC configuration? Yeah, it's, again, the way it's built is it's an extension in the platform. So it shouldn't matter whether you're using, our carriers or BYOC. Oh, okay. And Josh, you mentioned handling a complex questionnaire. Curious if that setup is something you could share. So, long story short, yes. So we have training materials, we have samples, sample call flows, all that stuff. That's just going to be part of the native like training and docs that Justin and team have really put a lot of hard work into. So you'll get all that. We even have a ChatGPT prompt that you can give to your customers that turns ChatGPT into basically questionnaire wizard, if you will. And it asks them about 10 or 11 questions. And then at the end of that, it actually spits out a prompt you can just paste right in. All right. Is the Viirtue support team trained on supporting AI agent issues and requests? Yes, they are. They're not going to do they're not going to help you build like a custom prompt or a call flow. That's really where that's your value as a partner. I think we think each of you is going to bring unique value and be able to really work tightly with your customers and build custom stuff for them. But our team knows, what to look for. If something's broken, they're able to escalate it up to get it fixed and all that stuff. So definitely feel free to reach out. All right. Yeah, another question was, do you have any examples of what it sounds like? That is a great question. Again, we have a new website launching next week. It'll be right there on, but if you want to test it, we built one just for that purpose. If you call 844-9VoIP AI, which is 844-986-4724, that's basically a demo. You can talk to it, ask it questions on capabilities and stuff, try and break it. We are monitoring it, and, anytime we see that it answers, maybe the way we didn't want it to, or it's a little slow. We noticed one of the models actually last week was it was actually 11 Labs voices where if it was over 300 characters, it was cutting off. So we did find a bug like that. So yeah, try and break it. We welcome that. And that's a big part of why we went through this pilot program and why we're trying to get you guys, access a few weeks early. Has any marketing materials been developed for this? And the answer is yes. In Vibe already today, I think there's already 2, if not 3 in there. There's sales slicks. There's a battle card versus RingCentral. The battle card versus RingCentral was already completed. I'm just not sure if we've uploaded it into Vibe yet. If it's not, it'll be there any day. And then on top of that, we're also working on 2 more. We're working on a social post that you'll be able to customize and post to advertise that you're selling AI agents. We're also working on an email template so you can email out to your customers. Another question was, there any difference in performance versus English and Spanish? Not that I've seen. It's an LLM, so it's pretty good at that. Does this agent work in a restaurant if a menu was uploaded and to talk through the order process? Yeah, for sure. And that, I think that's one of the best use cases we're seeing. You can integrate it with OpenTable or potentially Uber Eats or anything like that. So people can actually place orders, check order status, do all those things. So I think that's a great use case for it. All right. And another question, can the AI agent interact with the SMS? Not yet, but that is coming. That is coming soon. I'm just trying to skip through. We have a lot of questions, so still 30 left. Is there an integration with ConnectWise Managed? AI sends in a ticket call. Basically, the same answer to that. We built out one with Zendesk because that's what we're using, Zendesk, that does that exact thing. So if you call into our 611, it goes through it, pulls out the details, creates the ticket, reads the ticket number back to the caller, and then gives them the option to wait for an update via the ticket or to be transferred right to live support. You should be able to do that same thing with ConnectWise, no problem. Another question from Jason came in. Are there guardrails that do not allow the AI agent to get off track, meaning what's the weather questions? And it does that kind of out of the box. So we've actually seen people toy with that. I think we've even done it a little internally where, for example, if you call the agent, I just gave you that 844 number and say, hey, what's your favorite pizza? It's going to tell you, hey, I'm an agent that's with Viirtue or a white label VoIP provider. That's not really my scope. So it will do that. And again, with the agent instructions, you can provide any other guardrails. That's really where that tuning phase, I think, is going to be very important for you guys, is after you deploy it, working with the customer, whoever their admin is, telling them to listen to the call recordings and, just kind of finding those little onesie twosies, FAQs people ask, and just over time, making it better at answering those questions. Nick question was, I see Grok and GPT-5. Is Copilot on the map? No, and I think that's mainly because GPT is essentially what's powering Copilot, but I get the use case of it being more of a closed, maybe bring an individual tenants Copilot model. It's not on the roadmap yet. So something we can definitely talk about. Lewis said, followed up with make.com as a Zapier competitor that's more cost effective. Okay, fair. Yeah, we'll take a look at it. I will say there's nothing planned there yet. Question from Greg: for a support bot, are there documents we can use to seed the agent for most troubleshooting scenarios? So again, it's really it's specific for everything. So if that question is like kind of how to support your VoIP business, because this is something we've talked about a lot internally. A lot of feedback we get from partners is like, I'm growing, I don't have time to do technical support. Well, the agent might be able to do a lot of the technical support on your behalf. I wouldn't say like it's going to give like tier 2, tier 3, but definitely be able to give, answer basic questions, help guide your customers through the portal, that type of stuff. It knows just by default, if you tell them within the agent instructions, hey, I'm running Viirtue platform, that type of stuff, it'll use that context, because again, it's ChatGPT, it'll use that context to answer those questions for your customers. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely, it's not something that we focused on, but I don't think it's out of the question. Maybe, again, Justin, something maybe we can work on later down the road, is just a KB article that kind of gives those instructions. So yeah, if you want to use it for your customers to take some load off your desk, not even just to deploy, don't see why not. All right, and there's 30 questions left and we're out of time. So let me read through. Yeah, so just one more I think is important. There is a scope of work and SLA and all that stuff. So we do have that posted. That's all going to be part of the online documentation, the knowledge base, and all that good stuff. So you'll have access to that. And then one more question is, how do I find my partner manager, someone that I work with on? Yeah, very good question. If you don't know who your client success manager is today, just email support@viirtue.com. Just say you want the AI agents and just put a note in there that you're not sure who your client success person is, and we will make sure that they get in touch with you and moving forward. Like I said, the one thing I just want to set expectations. We are seeing a lot of demand for this tooling, so just bear with us if it does take a few days to get you the addendum and stuff like that. We're going to try and work through these as quick as possible and get you guys that access. All right, but with that, thank you guys again for taking time out of your busy day. I know it truly means a lot in the middle of the week. I know you guys are so busy, so to really take time out, we hope you find this valuable. I think this is going to be a big feature for you guys to sell. Again, stay tuned. We have some upcoming stuff. Again, we'll have some workshops if you want to learn more about building out webhooks and stuff like that. And again, we also do have some plans to bring on partners who will do a lot of this work for you if you do feel like this is a little too much for you to take on. So stay tuned for that stuff. Keep the feedback flowing. We definitely want to know what your experience is, good, bad, suck, whatever. I'm in our Slack community, LinkedIn, email me. I do respond to as much as I possibly can. Again, thank you guys all for your time. Justin, thank you so much. If you guys only knew how much work this guy and the rest of the team that's on here, Renee, a lot of people here at Viirtue, especially over the last 2 weeks of push, just to get you guys documentation and everything, that I didn't think of, basically, moving through the process. And Melissa, thank you always for putting this all together. So thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Yeah.